Hello everyone, welcome back to Kanga TV, home of North Melbourne fans. I have done my ladder prediction for the season. I've predicted every single North Melbourne game for the year, and now I'm going to walk you through every single game and why I think it'll end up the way that it ends up. I just want to put a disclaimer at the front. I'm not an expert, obviously, and I don't know if these margins are exactly what I think is going to happen, but just based on what we showed mostly in the second half of 2024 and how I feel North might do in 2025 and some of the other teams and at various parts of the season as well, that is sort of what has led me to this conclusion. It's very, very rough. I don't know how we're going to do in 2025. I've given it my best shot. I thought it would be a fun video to put together. For those of you who have watched my hot takes and initial predictions, watch that one first. I wasn't sure if I was going to go in depth into why I thought we would finish on 8 wins and 14th for the season, but that's the conclusion I came to. This is my thinking behind it. Let's go through every game and see where North's going to end up in season 2025. So the way this is going to work, I've got my laptop next to me. Up on the screen, you will see every result that I've predicted. It's a rough estimate, like I said before. I'll give you a little bit of reasoning as to why I think the game will pan out the way that it will, but I don't want to leave it too long because we have 23 games to get to. So no more yapping. Let's get a move on. Round 1, we play the Bulldogs on a Saturday night at Marvel Stadium. So excited that we're playing our round 1 game at home. I think we're going to win this game. I think it's a big statement to make, but I just feel like the momentum that's surrounding the club going into 2025, there's so much excitement. I feel like we'll go into this game full of belief and really thinking that we can do it. And I think we can do it. I think the Bulldogs have always found really hard to put my finger on where I think they will end up and what I think of them, to be perfectly honest with you. I feel like they're an incredibly difficult side to read because I feel like their best and worst, the gap is so big, and I know they're usually around the mark with finals, but I feel like round 1 we probably could get the jump on them, and so that's why I've tipped North to win this game. I've got a margin of 15 points. I don't know how close that is. I think it's really hard to see North winning a lot of games by a comfortable margin, and I feel like anything more than about 10 points is a comfortable margin for North Melbourne at this stage in time. So I've gone with 15 points. What actually happens on the night is another story, but I do think North will walk away with the win. Round 2, we take on the D's at Marvel Stadium, which is not something we often do. We usually do have our one fixture at the MCG against the D's a year, and we do play them there later on in the season. I think the D's are probably tipped to slide. However, I think the momentum and the steam that we'll go into round 1 with and claim the win, I would love us to win both games, to be honest. And I think this is actually a winnable game as well, particularly at Marvel Stadium. But I've gone with the D's just in this game, not on any other logic other than I don't know if we'll beat both the Bulldogs and Melbourne, and I feel like in my gut we're more likely to win that opening game, that round 1 game against the Bulldogs. However, I don't think this is out of the realm of possibility. We obviously really took it up to them in our fixture last season. Everyone famously remembers that last quarter comeback. I do, like I said, I think this is absolutely possible, especially under the roof, and I wouldn't put it past us to win this game as well. I've only tipped the D's based on the previous week that I've tipped us to beat the Bulldogs, and I just don't know if we're good enough to go 2 in a row, particularly against 2 sides that may be around the mark this season. So there's that. Round 3 against the Crows at Adelaide Oval. It's our one of 3 games in the first 9 rounds over in South Australia. Absolutely crazy that we're playing in South Australia 3 times in the first 9 rounds. I don't think that's necessary at all. We have not won a game over at Adelaide Oval, and while I think that Adelaide will finish in the lower half of the ladder and possibly even close to the bottom 4, I just don't know if we're good enough still to take that scalp and win that game, which is really hard to say because I do trust us, but on the flip side, it's just, I don't know. I'm trying to go into this positively, and obviously I feel like we are going to make a move up the ladder, don't get me wrong, but this is something we've never done before, and I don't know if we're at that stage where this is the year we're going to do it. I think we're going to see some incredible results for North, and I think we're going to see some really competitive performances and some pretty incredible games, but I have tipped Adelaide by 6 goals in this game, despite the fact that I don't actually think there's that much of a difference between the 2 sides on paper. I don't know. It's something in me just says we're not there yet. And I don't know what it is about Adelaide Oval. And it could be a mental thing. And I think a lot of the things holding North back are mental at this point. Again, we could jump that hurdle and they could surprise us. If we are going to win a game over in Adelaide, I think it's more likely that it's going to happen against Adelaide than it will be against Port Adelaide. I'm leaving the Barossa out of this conversation just at the moment. But I think if we are going to win a game at Adelaide Oval, it would be more likely against the Crows in the sort of short term anyway. But having said that, I just don't know if we'll get the job done. So I've gone with the Crows by 6 goals. Round 4, and it's our first of 2 games against the Sydney Swans, this one at home at Marvel. Really, really looking forward to this clash. We obviously took it up to them last time we played at Marvel in 2023, the famous interchange gate. I have done a video on that with Deebs from True Bloods. Make sure you watch that. It's a very, very funny watch for those who would like to relive that game. I don't know why I decided to do it, but anyway, you might want to as well. I think this will be competitive, but given our result against them last season over at the SCG, I still think that the Swans are a real dominant force. I've tipped them by 5 goals. I think playing here in Melbourne will give us the advantage just. The Swans are a class outfit anywhere they play though, and I think they should be able to get the job done. Round 5, gather round North, play the blockbuster at the Barossa at 12 noon against the Gold Coast Suns, and I think we will win this game. I think it is about time for us to win a game at gather round. I say that we've only played there 3 times, or this will be our 3rd, I should say. We know the Suns do struggle away from home. We also have beaten them once in each of season 23 and 24, and I feel like we are good enough to do it again. I think playing on neutral territory will be really interesting as well. I back our list, I back our performance, and I think it will be good enough to get the job done. I've been nice with this one. Good Friday, the annual Good Friday clash against Carlton. I sadly think it will be a similar result that we've had over the past 2 seasons. I actually could see this being a blowout, if I'm completely honest. It really depends on Carlton's season, I think, more than North. I think we will be 100% competitive, and I think that, like we proved in that second game against Carlton in 2024, we do have what it takes to challenge them, but we also saw them thrash us in the Good Friday fixture last year when they started 2024 in an absolutely sensational form. They were the team to beat for most of the first half of last year. So again, it could really go both ways. It just depends if they have a slow start to the season or they come bursting out of the blocks. I think it's too early to tell. I still think they'll win the game. This worries me a little bit, if I'm honest. We've only won 1 Good Friday clash since we had the fixture. We first had the fixture in 2017, and we only have defeated St Kilda in that fixture. We've been belted numerous times. We had 1 close encounter with the Dogs in the inaugural match, but otherwise it's been pretty one-sided ever since then. I would like to think that no matter the result on the day, this will be the fixture moving forward. I think this is the perfect combination for Good Friday in terms of location, in terms of crowd. I think if we are able to be more competitive on field over the next couple of seasons, and potentially we look to move this game to the MCG as well, which I think would be an incredible result. It has sold out over the past couple of seasons. I imagine it would do so again in 2025. I would like to be more confident going into this game. I just find it really hard to do so. Just given where Carlton's at, I don't know if we will be able to get near them. I would like to think that we're a chance, but I have gone for the Blues by 6 goals in this one. Doesn't get much easier. Round 7 against Port Adelaide over at Adelaide Oval. Once again, we literally go there, 2 weeks after gather round? Again, the AFL fixturing sometimes completely blows my mind. It is a really tough fixture in the first half of the year on paper. However, the commercial element of it, and I've spoken about this before, the commercial element of this fixture is outrageous. And if we can be really competitive and sneak in a few wins, then I think we really set ourselves up for a fantastic on-field, but also off-field. We give ourselves opportunities. We give ourselves opportunities for more games on TV, on free-to-air TV in 2026 and beyond, for better fixturing in terms of primetime slots in 2026 and beyond. I don't know if this one is going to be going anywhere near us in our favour. Port have demolished us time and time again in recent history. I unfortunately think this will be much of the same. I've got a 10-goal margin there. That also could actually be kind. Maybe I'm overrating Port. I don't know. I just feel like they are a bogey side for us, and I think we have really struggled against them in recent history to really let out much of a peep. And unfortunately, especially the travel as well in the first half of the year back and forth to Adelaide, it's not far, but it is quite intense, and I think there's a potential for us to let this one slip quite quickly and blow out to a significant margin. Round 8 against the Bombers. I found this one really, really hard to tip. I've gone for the Bombers by 3 goals here. I think they'll have not a bad season. They did beat us quite convincingly in 2024. However, in both games in 2023, we took it up to them. Probably should have won at least one, if not both of those games, to be perfectly honest with you. I do think they are quite hard to get a gauge on, the Bombers. I think their best and their worst, similarly to the Western Bulldogs, are quite far apart, but I just don't think their best is as good as the Western Bulldogs' best, and that is evident in the fact they have not played finals for quite some time. I think, again, this is winnable. If we are at our best and we are on our game on our day, I do think that the Bombers are the stronger side going into this. They also play Marvel Stadium very, very well. I'd be really interested to see how this one turns out. I don't know if it'll be in our favour. I wouldn't be surprised if we did win this game, but I have decided to play it safe for this prediction, and I've gone for the Bombers by 3 goals. Round 9, and we take on the reigning premiers in Hobart in one of our last games down in Tasmania. I have been very kind when tipping this game. I have tipped North to be somewhat within conversation. If 7.5 goal margin is being within conversation for the reigning premiers, then so be it. I think being down in Tasmania may help us a little bit. However, Tassie and Bellerive Oval has not been kind and has not been the fortress in recent seasons that it once was when we started playing home games there all those years ago. Is it better than playing Brisbane at Gather Round? I'm not really sure. I don't know, like I said, how much of an advantage playing in Hobart does have for us anymore. They are obviously a quality outfit. They are the side to beat heading into season 2025. I don't know if we'll actually get within 45 points of them, but let's just hope that that we do, or do better. Actually, that's my preference. Just do better than that. Round 10 against Richmond. It's our first of 3 games at the MCG in 2025. I don't know about you, but I'm so excited to be playing more footy at the G. I think we'll win this one. I think we are a better side than the Tigers. We do play them twice this season, and although we have played them in the past few seasons over at Marvel Stadium, and that's where our wins have come from in 2022 and in 2024, they did get on top of us in 2023, unfortunately, when we did play at the MCG. I think we should win this game. I think we're good enough to win this game. I've tipped us by almost 5 goals. It was the most convincing win. That round 21 win this season, I think it was round 21, at home under the roof at Marvel against the Tigers, is the most convincing win we've had for quite some time. And I really think that we should be able to replicate that result once again when we play Richmond later on this season as well. So our first game against the Tigers, I've tipped us by 28 points. This is an interesting one. Round 11, we take on Collingwood under the roof at Marvel Stadium. Now, I don't need to remind you yet again what happened in round 14 in 2024. It really does show that anything can happen, and while I do think that the Collingwood side heading into 2025 is much stronger and is throwing themselves back in premiership contention, to be honest with you, I can't get that first half out of my mind. I don't think any North fan for quite some time will get that first half out of our minds, and I feel like if we can just get on top of Collingwood and we can rattle them a little bit, then anything could happen. And I do feel like we are better placed to hold on to some of those margins heading into the second half of the season, heading into season 2025. I think we will be better placed to stop the bleeding as best as we can. It's something that we were just totally unable to do in 2024, and we let quite a few margins slip. Fremantle, we let the D's get out to a lead before we caught up. Obviously, this Collingwood game, both West Coast games were quite topsy-turvy. We even held leads against Carlton at some points and against the Bulldogs. So I think that we will be better placed to stop the bleeding. Are we going to be good enough to beat Collingwood, who look like a very rejuvenated side? They do look really much improved with the changes they have made to their list in the off-season. I've tipped Collingwood by 10 points. I don't know if we will see something again like we did see in round 14 last year. I would love to think that that wasn't a one-off and that it is possible. And I do trust that maybe we will be able to do that once again. But for the sake of playing it safe and for the sake of trying to get a gauge on where we'll be at realistically by the end of the season, I've tipped the Pies to win this one. We'll skip round 12 as that is North's bye, and in round 13 we play our first of 2 home games over in WA. First up is the West Coast Eagles at Hand Stadium in Bunbury. We have had some pretty exciting, insane encounters with West Coast over the past probably 3 to 4 seasons now. I think we should get the job done over in WA. I did say in my previous video, my predictions video, if you haven't seen that one, I would recommend watching that one first, that I think that the WA experiment will be a success in its first season, and success to me is at least 1 win, if not both. And I do think we are good enough to take it up to Fremantle at Optus Stadium the following week. But if we are going to win 1 game, I think most people would think this is the one that we would win and be more likely to win. Hand Stadium is neutral territory. We actually do play West Coast in the preseason game at Hand Stadium in Bunbury in March. So it'll be really interesting to see how we play the ground and how we play West Coast, albeit it's a preseason game. But I do think it'll be really interesting to see how we go and what we look like playing at the ground for the first time. I've tipped us by 9 points. I just feel like these games are always competitive, and I did speak to Jessie from True Footy about this some time ago on the channel as well. As a North fan, I always go into West Coast games, in recent history anyway, thinking this is a game we should win. And I think West Coast fans look at the fixture and think the same. So I feel like for both sides, it's always super competitive. It's always really hotly contested. And I think it will go down to the wire, as it has so often between both of these sides in the past few seasons. I think North is good enough to get the job done, and I've tipped us by 9 points. As mentioned, in round 14, we play Fremantle over at Optus Stadium, a Saturday night blockbuster. I love Optus Stadium night. If you can get over to Perth for this game, I highly, highly recommend it. Optus Stadium is an incredible stadium to watch footy. It is even more amazing at night. I think this will be a really competitive game. I think it'll be a really interesting fixture. Another one I think we can win. I have obviously tipped Fremantle here for the sake of, as I've said previously, trying to stay somewhat level-headed and get a reasonable gaze on what our season will look like on a whole. I do think this game is a potential for us to win. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the week in Perth and being based in Perth for the week leading into this game, if that's going to change anything for North as well. It might not. I mean, it's all part of this first year and this first year of the experiment, for a lack of a better word. I'm really, really looking forward to this game. I do think Fremantle is good enough to win it. I think they could be pushing for finals again in 2025, and based on that, I have tipped them for the win. However, I think this one could actually go down to the wire as well. Played it safe with an 18-point margin, but wouldn't surprise me if it was a lot closer than that. Back in Melbourne for round 15 and our second clash against Carlton, this time at the MCG. Carlton played the MCG incredibly well. However, by the second time around, we should be able to get a little bit closer to the Blues. Now, like I said, I might rate Carlton higher than a lot of other people. I might not. I don't know. I'm just going off what we saw from them last year, how our 2 games played out. I think this also could be closer. However, given at the MCG, I think that Carlton will probably get the job done. I actually think this could be a bigger margin than 5 goals as well. I've just put that in there maybe to flatter us a little bit, maybe a few junk time goals at the end, who knows. But I do see the Blues winning this one, unfortunately, in a comfortable encounter. Round 16, and we go to Launceston to play Hawthorn. I think a 4-goal margin is definitely flattering us. If I'm honest, I feel like this might be a bigger margin, unfortunately. I think what Hawthorn did in 2024 is something that we will look to replicate in 2025, but hopefully sustain it and be able to build on it and become more successful as the seasons go on. it's hard to know how close we will be able to get to them. We didn't get anywhere near them in either game. I mean, we lost by 100 odd points in that last round. We were completely gassed by the end of the season and we just couldn't get anywhere near them. They play Launceston incredibly well. Having said that, we did beat them down there in 2021, and while they did look a different side back then to what they do now, that never strays far from the memory. I also feel like as we approach a later half of the year, there are some surprise results that can potentially swing our way. So while a loss isn't necessarily a surprise result, maybe the margin will be closer. I've gone with 4 goals here. I could be way off, but I've got the faith. This is the Delulu Marnie coming out, I think. I've got a lot of faith. Round 17, and we face the Bulldogs once again under the roof at Marvel. Like I said at the top of the video, I find the Bulldogs really hard to get a read on, but I usually feel like they start to peak later in the season. I feel like they keep themselves around the mark for the first half and then burst as the season goes on. I've tipped the Bulldogs for our second clash. I've gone with 4 goals. Again, I might be kind to North. I'm not really sure. I forget how many games we lost by like 6+ goals at the first half of 2024. I'd like to swiftly remove that from my memory. I feel like we could challenge them like we did in the first game of the 2 in 2024. It's really hard to know what to take from those last 2 games in 2024. We lost by 96 points to the Bulldogs and then by over 100 points a week later in Launceston to Hawthorn. So I'm interested to see how this goes. I think we will be competitive and I think we do have a genuine chance of winning this game, but I feel like the Dogs might be too strong the second time around. Remember what I said about surprise results? Well, we do take on Melbourne again later on in the year at the MCG, and I'm seeking all kinds of revenge for the same fixture from 2024. I've tipped North by 2 points, and I genuinely think we can win this game. I think that mentally we know we're good enough, and I really hope that we take that in if we don't take it into that game in round 2. It's silly. I don't know why I've tipped us to beat Melbourne at the MCG but not at Marvel Stadium. Anyway, we move on. I feel like by this point is where the surprise results could sort of start to come. I've tipped North in this fixture by 2 points. I think we have the potential to really take it up to the Ds once again this season. We did it last season. We're going to look better this season. I feel like they may be further away from it in 2025. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn or too soon, but that kind of looks like the trajectory they're heading on. And I feel like we're rising and they're falling, and we're sort of meeting somewhere in the middle. So hopefully that means a win for North, and how sweet would that be? A 2-point victory for North. I mean, we love a heart stopper at Arden Street. As long as it falls in our way, no complaints from me. No complaints from me at all. A surprise win followed by a humbler, and something to bring us back down to earth. Sydney at the SCG. We know what happened in that fixture in 2024. I don't know if we'll get close to the Swans at home. I know we've done it before. It has been quite some time since we beat them over at the SCG. I think 2018 was the last time we did that. Unfortunately, not much more to say about this game than the obvious. I still think the Swans will be a threat next season. Maybe some new blood with Dean Cox will rejuvenate them the way they need. Hopefully we can keep this one to a reasonable margin. I've gone with 46 points for this result. Is that, I don't know. Is that being optimistic? I'm not sure. I'm not sure at all, to be honest. Okay. This is it. I think this is North's big game for 2025. I'm predicting we beat Geelong at home at Marvel Stadium as we celebrate our 100th year in the VFL. This is the first game we played when we entered the VFL back in 1925. I think it was against Corio, which is part of Geelong and in that region. I think this is something that we should really be striving to win. And not that every game's important, obviously, but we all know North absolutely love a milestone. We love getting up and about for a milestone and celebrating everything this great club is about. And I think the stage is set for us to claim a big victory. Have not beaten Geelong for quite some time at home at Marvel. Potentially we could catch them on an off day. We usually go down the highway and play them at GMHBA. That is out of the door for season 2025. We're bringing it back to Melbourne, and I think this is it. I genuinely think this is it. Maybe I'm crazy. You all know I'm a little bit crazy, but maybe I'm crazy, but I just feel like this is a perfect script for us. And if we really want to step up and we really want to take that scalp and kind of stamp ourselves as we're back, this is the perfect opportunity to do it. And I actually trust the club to do it. I think this is just a really special game, and I think that we would be silly if we didn't make the most of it and take the win. 16 points, I think that's a reasonable margin. I think it's close enough to keep it exciting and keep us on our toes, but also big enough to think, yeah, we've got it. It's a good, hard-earned win for North Melbourne. Round 21 against St Kilda. I find St Kilda games so hard to tip because they don't score, but they don't let you score either. So I've actually tipped them by 3 goals, but will they even generate enough of a score? That's another question. I have absolutely no idea. I've tipped St Kilda. I think they obviously play Marvel Stadium exceptionally well. Another team I find really hard to gauge. They're always mid. No offense to any St Kilda fans watching, but they're always somewhere between like 9th and 12th. So I'm not sure about this tip. I do think this is another one we might be able to surprise them and win. We should have beaten them not in 2024, but 2023. We were definitely close enough. We should have won that second game. We just let the lead slip in the last quarter. I think we're good enough. I think if we jump them, and I think if we can actually get out to a big enough of a lead, then maybe we'll be able to hold it, stop the bleeding, and hopefully take the 4 points, although they have generated a little bit more of a score under Ross Lyon in recent times. I'm interested to see how this game goes. They're usually pretty ugly games, if I'm honest, and I'll be happy to see the back of it. I've gone with Saints for the win. Round 22 against the Giants, and we return to Manuka Oval, our once upon a time home. I think the Giants are too good. Not much that really has to be said about that. Insane that we've got to wait till round 21 and 22 to play St Kilda and the Giants for the first time each respectively. Can't get my head around the fixturing sometimes. Anyway, I think this one is self-explanatory. I think the Giants will be there about premiership contention once again this season, I should say, in 2025. I've gone with a 5-goal margin. We did get quite close to them in round 1 in 2024. We didn't look at them again for the rest of the season. It could go either way. They were getting stronger and stronger as the season progressed in 2024. So if the script is the same for 2025, then this could get ugly. I'm staying optimistic and going with a 5-goal margin. Round 23 in our final home game in Hobart against Richmond. I have tipped us to win both games against Richmond this season. I've gone with almost 4 goals for the margin here. We have beaten Richmond in Tasmania previously. That Friday night game under lights, I think it was in 2016, we absolutely smashed them. Anyway, I don't know if it'll be exactly the same in terms of the margin, but I do think the result will be the same. I do think North will take the win. I'm excited. I think that it is winnable, and I think that, like I said, in the first fixture, we are good enough that we should be beating Richmond in both fixtures, in my humble opinion. And finally, round 24 against Adelaide. I think we will win our last game for the season as well as the first game of the season. We play them here in Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. I've gone with the 6-point margin. Nothing like a nail biter to finish off the year. I do think we are good enough to beat Adelaide, and I know that recent results have suggested otherwise, but I'm not sure where they'll be in terms of ladder position next season. It's hard to tell, to be perfectly honest with you. I think we'll beat them. How nice would that be, opening the season with a win and closing the season with a win? Chef's kiss. So there you have it. That is my 2025 prediction for North Melbourne. As I said, that would leave North in 14th on the ladder. Looking at this ladder, I don't know if I agree with Hawthorn finishing first. I don't know where that's come from, if I'm perfectly honest. I don't know how much I actually trust my own ladder, but I'm not really fussed about the other teams and the other results, just focusing on North. Just to recap, I've got North with 8 wins, 15 losses, sitting at 14th on the ladder. I've said multiple times before, I don't know if the amount of wins that we'll get throughout the season will necessarily bolster us up the ladder to, finishing 9th or 10th. The competition is so even that could work for us and also could work against us. 1 or 2 results our way, 1 or 2 results against us could be the difference between us finishing 9th and 16th. But you could be sitting in 16th. I mean, look at the ladder I put together, right? I've got Adelaide in 16th with 5 wins. I've got West Coast in 17th with 5 wins. Now, I'm not the mastermind. I'm not saying this ladder is Bible. Obviously, I've got Hawthorn first on the ladder, which I actually don't think is going to happen at all. But I think that as long as we can see some tangible improvement and we can get at least 6 wins for the year, then I think that's probably a relatively successful season in my books for 2025. I just want to know that we're improving and I want to see it in front of my eyes in more ways than watching the play and seeing us get better without actually taking the 4 points home at the end of the day. What have you got on your predictions for North in 2025? How many wins? Where do you think we'll finish? Leave all of your thoughts in the comments down below. If you've got your own ladder predictor that's better than mine, it probably is better than mine, let's be honest. I'd love to see it down below. You can also share it over on socials, Instagram and X Kanga TV show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There is so much Kanga content coming in the lead up to the season. And of course, we're about to ride the 2025 season all together and I could not be more excited. Thank you again for joining me on this journey. I'm so privileged and so lucky to be able to share it with all of you. I look forward to seeing you guys very, very soon.